week, we're focused on the water issue, specifically Midrand. You may remember our conversation with Guguletu Quma, who is the Joburg Water's electromechanical manager, who said, just 3 or 5 days and it will all be fixed. Now, many residents of Midrand will tell you they haven't had water for much longer than that. But it's not only Midrand. There are other areas in Johannesburg, Auckland Park, Fourways, that have had difficulties with water for a period of time. We know the current mayor of Johannesburg, Dada Morero, has made all kinds of promises about the restoration of water supply. So what we've decided to do over the next few weeks, we're going to invite those who would seek the mayoral change of Johannesburg to tell us what problems they've identified in the city, but more importantly, what solutions they offer. And somebody who has done a few visits to a number of sites around Johannesburg is DA candidate for mayor in Johannesburg or at least for the next local government elections, Helen Zille. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for your time.
Bongani, are you going to roast me again?
Listen, I won't be naughty and ask you about DA elections and succession battles. Maybe I will at the end, but that's not why we called you here this morning. I've noted with some interest your social media posts. You've been visiting a number of areas. Water has been a particular focus, but perhaps I thought, let's start with one of your more recent videos, that heartbreaking visit to the Alexandra Women's Hostel. That was just shocking.
That was totally heartbreaking. I mean, that in this day and age, there are still single-sex hostels in South Africa is one thing. But it was interesting for me to hear that the women wanted to be, or some of the women that I spoke to, obviously I didn't speak to every woman, but some of the women said they actually wanted to be without men there, and they were complaining that there were young men there of about the age of 18 to 22, which made life very difficult for them, but most were single women. But when I did speak to them about family units, they said, yes, they desperately wanted family units. But that is one thing. The single-sex hostel concept is one thing. The second thing is the state of the place. Apparently there's another hostel that's even worse, which is called the Madala Hospital in Alexandra. I'll be going there soon. But the one that I saw, I couldn't believe that human beings live in a place like that. There was sewage everywhere. The smell was unbearable. I don't know how you live and sleep and eat and breathe in a place like that. The facilities, the baths, I mean, that people haven't got cholera and botulism is a miracle, frankly. It's a miracle. And the kitchen facilities, everything. I just could not believe what I saw.
And, of course, you highlight the fact that there's always money allocated to fixing a place like that, but it just doesn't get spent.
Well, there's always money allocated to fixing, but then it goes somewhere else. I just would love to understand the budget process in Joburg, because money is allocated, and then somehow it gets reallocated to something else. Now, in Joburg, with the water, there was apparently 4 billion in the water account, and what happens is that it's swept out. So every single night, apparently, money comes in, residents pay for water, they pay for electricity, they pay their rates and service charges. There's something called a general account. And the money gets swept out of, let's say, Joburg Water or City Power, and goes into the general account, and then gets used for other stuff. So you were saying in your intro, what would I do? The first thing I would do would be to ring fence a large chunk of that money for water. The problem with water in Joburg is that it hasn't been maintained for about 30 years. In Selby, there are factories that have been without water for about, I would say, 20 weeks now. They have a water truck that comes, and of course a lot of money in Joburg gets allocated to the water trucks, and we all know what a corrupt enterprise that is. But in Selby, where they have the oldest water system, or one of the oldest water systems in Joburg, and there are a lot of factories there, those factories can't function when there's no water, obviously, because you can't flush a toilet or anything. And so people can't come to work. And so the factory isn't productive, and so people have to be retrenched. And thousands of people face that kind of thing when the water goes down. But Selby isn't a quick fix.
Yeah.
Selby's pipes have collapsed. They've gone. And that's got to be done from scratch. This big problem at Midrand and right through to the Hurst Hill area, that is Westbury, Coronationville, Melville, West Dean, Emmarentia, all of that area, they got hit very hard this week as well. And I live in one of those places. I'm not going to say which one, but I live in one of those places, so I know. The problem started at Zuikerbosch, which is a water treatment plant. And in Zuikerbosch, there was an explosion. I don't know why there was an explosion. It was quite a bad explosion, and that had a knock-on effect. It had a knock-on effect to all the pump stations, like Palmit. And then that goes down the road. So that water tower at Grand Central, which serves the Midrand area, I was there, wasn't getting water.
Yeah, you were at Grand Central Water Tower in Midrand.
Correct.
I want you to listen to Mayor Dada Morero, who says, yeah, but officials are working around the clock to restore water supply in Midrand. And tell me if you find him convincing. Have a listen.
We have to explain this matter into proper context. There was a leak at the Klipfontein reservoir, which is a rainwater reservoir, which then affected supply to Joburg Waters reservoirs in the area, which is basically your President Park reservoir, your Grand Central, your Deep Slot reservoir, etc. There's about 5 reservoirs in the area, and as such they were affected, and that's why we will not be able to store water and supply water into the area. So what we are now beginning to see is an improvement in the system. The leak was fixed, and rainwater is beginning to pump water into its reservoir and pump water into our reservoirs. We are seeing an improvement. It should be just around 60%, but we hope it will increase, and that will allow us now to supply water. And that particular reservoir of rainwater is supplying Johannesburg, Tshwane, and partially Ekurhuleni. So it's a very big station, and that is why the impact has been this big. So we should be able to restore water. The teams are working. We've increased our technical teams. Today, again, we are also increasing on our water tankers to ensure, at least whilst we're working on getting the system to improve, the people are at least getting supply of water.
Are you convinced?
Look, I could hardly hear that. It was very, very full of static and blurred and everything. The truth is that the systems are unmaintained and so old that a fault in one place triggers a lot of faults down the line. And that's the problem. The Zuikerbosch explosion then hit Palmit, then hit Klipfontein, hit Grand Central, hit all of them in a kind of domino effect. And then there's too little water in the reservoirs because they can't pump water into the reservoirs. So they have to choose which reservoirs to actually prioritize. And that is why you have some places going down with water and some places having water. And it's like kind of whack-a-mole, I called it. You fix one problem one place and it pops up in another place. And it's because you can't fill the reservoirs if the water treatment plant isn't going down and if there's an explosion in one of the systems, which I presume is an electrical explosion, although I don't know.
All of this would suggest that because, as you point out, many of these issues are legacy issues now, they've been unattended to for quite a period of time, there won't be any quick fixes. How do you propose to deal with this mess?
Well, yes, there won't be any quick fixes because you can't fix water that's been neglected for 30 years in 100 days of becoming the mayor. And the point is to be 100% honest with the public. I'm learning a lot every single day. I'm finding out exactly what is wrong. I'm getting a map of the very complex water systems. There are 22 critically endangered water systems in Johannesburg that are literally on their last legs because they haven't been maintained for so long. One of the worst ones is that one in Selby that I spoke about. And those pipes are going to have to be replaced. And we're going to have to make arrangements for places as pipes are replaced. But that has to be ongoing. And the big challenge is going to be communicate. People have to know where the problems are, where the work is going to be done, how long it's going to take. It has to be absolute, accurate information. And we have to get a lot of the shoddy workmanship out of the system. And that brings me to another point that I think I should make, Bongani. I'm totally shocked to be briefed and to learn that a lot that goes wrong is actually deliberate. Not only is there terribly shoddy workmanship, but apparently contractors to the city are prepared to do something and to repair something that will deliberately and by design break in the near future so they can be called back to fix it.
And make more money. Helen,
That's right.
You have obviously put yourself in the race for the mayoral position in Johannesburg. And perhaps a cheeky question as we end off our conversation. How
You're always
much,
cheeky, Bongani.
how much do the latest ructions within the DA more broadly, as far as leadership are concerned, how much do they dent some of the image you would want to sell about your party to even Joburg voters who look at the national issues that the party is facing, the exit of John Steenhuisen this week and everything around the build-up to that, who look at it and say, hang on, the DA isn't as squeaky clean, isn't as undivided as the other parties in South Africa and what we've become used to?
The fact is that the DA is a party that has peaceful leadership changes through the ballot box. We are a party that has regular congresses every 3 years. Many other parties do not do that. Many other parties seem to have leaders for life and don't have elected leaders at all in their system. And other parties, and I was stunned to be briefed by what went on in the ANC in the last elective conference when Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma was standing against Cyril, and the amount of money that changed hands so that people would vote for a particular delegate.
We know well enough.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
No, you just don't know what it's like and what it does to the fabric of our democracy. The DA, the fact that there was a conflict between Dion George and John Steenhuisen, and that it came to the fore and that we dealt with it, is not the kind of crisis of spending 500 million rand paying off delegates to vote for you.
All right, Helen Zille, we'll have to leave it there. Also, of course, chair of the Democratic Alliance's Federal Council.
Current events, developing stories,
tough questions.
Your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.